اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا خيرتك الله وابن خيرته. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموطور. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله عبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرضية وجلت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتب الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة كتلتكم، ولعن الله الممحدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن هاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبا، ولعن الله ابن مرجان، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله الشمرا، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنكبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مكامك وأكرمني أن يرزقني طلب ثاري مع الإمام المنصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قتلك ونسب لهم الحرب، وبالبراءة ممن أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم، وأبراء إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسست أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانه وجرى عليه في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشيائكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناسبين لكم الحرب وبالبراءة من أشيائهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن آداكم. فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم، ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم، أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأل الله أن يبلغني المكام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاري مع الإمام الهدى ظاهر ناتق بالحق منكم، وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصاب بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا مصيبتي ما أعظمها وأعظم رضية في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مكامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محيا محمدا وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمدا وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية، وابن آكلة الأكباد اللعين ابن اللعين، على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موضع وموقف، وكفى فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة عبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب العليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا يوم وفي موقف هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمدا وآل محمد، وآخر تاب له على ذلك. اللهم لعن الإسابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايات وبايات وتابت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم بالحق مني، وابدأ به أولا، ثم عن الثانية والثالثة والرابعة. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسة، والعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمرة وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رضيته. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود، وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بدلوا محجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الفاتحة.
सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि मोहम्मद व आलि मोहम्मद। आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला लूं मेरे असग़र आजा। आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला लूं मेरे असग़र आजा। लोरी अरमान से भरपूर सुना लूं मेरे असग़र आजा। आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला लूं मेरे असग़र आजा। तीर के आगे मेरे लाल तुझे होना है। देख कर तेरी हंसी जुल्म ने भी रोना है। जो तरीके है लड़ाई के सिखा लूं मेरे असग़र आजा। आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला लूं मेरे असग़र आजा। पहले अल्लाह का मैं शुक्र बजा लाऊंगी। देख कर खून तेरा लाल में मर जाऊंगी। मैं तुझे मौत की हिचकी से बचा लूं मेरे असग़र आजा। आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला लूं मेरे असग़र आजा। तुझको एक बार दफन बाबा तेरे कर देंगे। फिर तुझे नेज़ सकीफ़ा के वहाँ ढूंढेंगे। दश्त की गए मैं हवाओं से बचा लूं मेरे असग़र आजा। आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला लूं मेरे असग़र आजा। तेरी मासूम सकी ना को पिला के पानी, कल तेरी प्यास बुझाएगा अली का सानी। मैं तुझे देख के प्यास अपनी बुझा लूं, मेरे असग़र आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला लूं, मेरे असग़र आजा। लाश असग़र की जो दे की तो उठी एक भूखा, है ये शामे ग़रीबा को सकीना ने कहा, होके पाबंद तुझे पानी पिला लूं, मेरे असग़र आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला लूं, मेरे असग़र आजा। लोरी अरमान से भरपूर सुना लूं, मेरे असग़र आजा, आज की रात तुझे गोदी में सुला लूं, मेरे असग़र आजा। मोहम्मद
वाल मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु गरीब ज़हरा की गुरबात सुनो, अहले अज़ाब। गरीब ज़हरा की गुरबात सुनो, अहले अज़ाब। अकेला रह गया मक़तल में जब मेरा मौला, सिपाह शाम ने चारों तरफ से घेर लिया, लबे फरात था हर एक खून का प्यासा, था गुल चरागे इमामत भी बुझाना है, और ज़मीं पे ज़ीन से शबीर को गिराना है, और और ये सुन के संग किसी ने जबीन पर मारा, और किसी ने पहलू में बर्छी का फल उतार दिया, अरे किसी ने सामने आकर चलाए तेग जफा, गरीब ज़हरा काजी पर संभलना मुश्किल था। अली और ज़हरा को रन में रुलाया जाता था, और हुसैन गिरते नहीं थे, गिराया जाता था। लगा जो तीर तो असग़र को शह ने याद किया, अरे पुकारा गाजी को, पुकारा गाजी को, जिस वक्त सर पे गर्ज लगा, और लगी जो बर्छी तो अकबर को दी तरफ के सदा, तमाचा खूली ने मारा तो बोले आ ज़हरा, अली को याद किया सर पे ज़र्ब चलते हुए, अरे हसन को याद किया मुँह से खून गलते हुए। हाय हुसैन, अरे रकम किया है ये रावी ने दर्द का मंजर, के चलने वाला था जिस दम हुसैन पर खंजर, अरे बहन से आगे, बहन से आगे खड़ी थी हुसैन की दुख्तर, कहाँ ये शिम्र से उस दम गरीब ने रोकर, और मेरी सकीना, मेरी सकीना कहीं दम न तोड़ दे जालिम, अरे तू रहम कर मेरे बालों को छोड़ दे जालिम, अब इसके आगे तकल्लुम बयान क्या होगा, लगी जो ज़रबे ना न निकला लहू का एक कतरा, लाइन गैज़ में आकर सदाए देने लगा, हुसैन जल्दी बता मोजिज़ा है ये कैसा, कहाँ गरीब ने तू प्यार माँ का क्या जाने, अरे गले पे मेरे गला रख, गले पे मेरे गला रख, दिया है ज़ाहिरा ने। पर मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु।
आशूर का सूरज है, कयामत की गरी है, भाई का गला कटता बहन देख रही है, मक़तल में किसी माँ की सदा गूंज रही है। आए मेरे हुसैन मेरी गोद में आजा मेरे बच्चे मेरी आगोश में आजा, मेरे लिए ए लाल तू असगर की तरह है, गोदी मेरी गहवारा है बिस्तर की तरह है, इस धूप में दामन मेरा चादर की तरह है। आए मेरे हुसैन मेरी गोद में आजा मेरे बच्चे मेरी आगोश में आजा, मैं माँ हूँ मेरा दिल नहीं सीने में संभलता, नाजुक ये बदन तेरा ये जलता हुआ सहरा, और इसमें सितम ये ना के तू रह गया प्यासा। आए मेरे हुसैन मेरी गोद में आजा मेरे बच्चे मेरी आगोश में आजा, मैं गोद में ले लूं तुझे सीने से लगा लूं, सीने पे सकीना की तरह तुझको सुला लूं, सीने के तेरे तीर में पलकों से निकालूं। आए मेरे हुसैन मेरी गोद में आजा मेरे बच्चे मेरी आगोश में आजा, तेरी भी तो औलाद है तू भी तो पदर है, औलाद का गम क्या है ये तुझको भी खबर है। हम बच्चे का सह जाए ये किस माँ का जिगर है। आए मेरे हुसैन मेरी गोद में आजा मेरे बच्चे मेरी आगोश में आजा। तू लेट गया थक के तुसी जलती जमी पर, ये किस का लहू तूने मला रूह हंसी पर। मत खाक पे सो लाल तेरी माँ है यहीं पर। आए मेरे हुसैन मेरी गोद में आजा मेरे बच्चे मेरी आगोश में आजा। जो दिल पे तेरे गुजरी में सब देख रही थी, हर लाश उठाने में तेरे साथ गई थी। अब बात वो कहती तू जो बचपन में कही थी। आए मेरे हुसैन मेरी गोद में आजा मेरे बच्चे मेरी आगोश में आजा मेरे बच्चे मेरी आगोश में आजा। सूरतुल फातिहा।
على محمد وآل محمد. Recite Surah Fatiha for all our volunteers, all the people that have brought. Mom, I want to try. Labbaik ya Hussein. 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 Labbaik ya Mahdi. Labbaik ya Mahdi. Labbaik ya Faz. Labbaik ya Abul Faz. Can we recite one Surah Fatiha for all our marhumeen, especially Marhuma Hamida Panju? Just a couple of announcements, inshallah, for tomorrow. Our Ashura program will be at Abu Ali Cemetery. Program will start at 11:30 a.m. With Amal, inshallah. A link was sent out for registration. If you're not able to register your name, car parking is on a first-come, first-served basis. So once the car park is full, they will stop cars going in. So please try and arrive as early as possible. And if you are able, please carpool as much as possible. It will allow more people to attend the program. And if you are running late for any reason, then inshallah try and find somebody who can take you and drop you there, or an Uber or something, just so that you can avoid disappointment. But inshallah, they are trying their best to increase the car park lot and add as many people as possible. We would also request you guys to recite a Surah Fatiha for all of the volunteers and their families, their marhumin. We've had a lot of people bring the food, the majalis, and have volunteered in cooking food, buying supplies and things like that. So please recite the Surah Fatiha for all of their marhumin and all of our marhumin, inshallah. Bismillah.
لبيك يا حسين.
لبيك يا حسين.
لبيك يا حسين.
لبيك يا حسين.
أبيك يا حسين. أبيك يا حسين.
Can I get a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad? Please move as far forward as possible.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء، حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما ولي الله الحجة ابن الحسن صاحب الأمر والزمان. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، يا غريب الغرباء، يا مظلوم كربلاء، السلام على من جعل الله الشفاء في تربته. السلام على من الإجابة تحت قبته. السلام على ساكن كربلاء. فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا وكنا معكم سادتي. يا سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، قال مولانا إمام علي بن الحسين زين العابدين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. لا يوم كيوم الحسين. صدق الإمام وآمنا به. نوروا مجالسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد. Second of your loudest salawat to gain the attention and the pleasure of Sayyidati Nisa'il Alameen, Sayyida Fatimah al-Zahra alayha as-salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Laylat Ashura. From the a'mal of the night of Ashura and the day of Ashura, Hibai, most of you will recite Ziyarat Ashura. You will pledge your allegiance to Sayyid al-Shuhada through the recitation of the Ziyarah. And as you pledge your allegiance to the Madhloom Imam, it is necessary that we understand and we contemplate on the words that we recite within the Ziyarah. For us, understanding the Ziyarah and understanding the connotations of the words that we recite, this Ziyarat Ashura, which is a Hadithul Qudsi that emanates through a Ma'soom Imam. With understanding, our ma'rifah increases, our connection with the Imam increases, and the purpose of our existence becomes more and more clear. 2 points within the Ziyarat Ashura that I want to discuss with you on a night like this. One point of the Ziyarah, you go forward and you say, Ya Aba Abdullah, لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. يا أبا عبد الله, your conversation is directed towards Sayyid al-Shuhada himself. For a person, when he speaks with the Ma'soom Imam, must speak truth, must speak what he feels inside of him, lest it is considered to be untrue, wal-ayadu billah, a lie. Ya Aba Abdullah, This tragedy, to paraphrase, and perhaps the official translations that you find are more accurate in the meaning. This tragedy of Yozia Aba Abdullah, لَقَدْ عَظُمَتِ الْمُصِيبَةِ. This tragedy is absolutely great for me to bear. This tragedy that has fallen upon me is azim, is grand. This tragedy is absolutely heavy for the entire heaven and the dwellers of the heaven to bear. في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. This is a tragedy which is absolutely great for the entire Islam. Anyone who subscribes to Islam. وَعَظُمَتِ الْمُصِيبَةُ بِكَ عَلَيْنَا, upon us, وَعَلَى جَمِيعِ أَهْلِ الْإِسْلَامِ. Anyone who claims to be a Muslim on this night, on this day, this tragedy is absolutely heart-rendering and shattering. Azim. Heart is not able to handle this grief. A person must attempt to feel this grief when he utters it to the Imam. The Imam knows the sidq, the truth behind the words with which we address him. And not to discourage wal-ayadu billah anyone from reciting Ziyarat Ashura, lest somebody says, I'm not at this stage, I will not recite Ziyarat Ashura. La. Put this as a goal that you need to reach, and you keep reciting. Manifestation of this grief, which is azim, a manifestation of this grief that cannot be contained within the hearts, is then manifested in our conduct, is manifested in our action. And the greatest, most apparent manifestation is in the azadari. It's a grief that cannot be contained, overflows in these spiritual acts of lamentation and self-flagellation. They've said this a number of times over the last few days. They've mentioned it this afternoon as well. And it is important on a night like this, the night of Ashura, that it is mentioned again, because this is a risala and the message from the Hawza Ilmiya itself. This particular year, with the challenges that surround us, those that had taken upon the responsibility to serve Sayyid al-Shuhada and failed in their commitment, in the face of their failure and their negligence, you have groups of mu'mineen and mu'minat that went above and beyond to show that the dhikr of Imam al-Hussein and the azadari of Sayyid al-Shuhada can happen whilst maintaining all the regulations from a health and safety perspective, be it sanitization, be it face masks, be it social distancing, whatever, be it restricted numbers. But majlis happens. And in the face of failure, sarahatan, believe me, and we make statements like these, heavy prices are paid. Heavy prices are paid at a personal level, at any level. So now we have loyalty towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. In the face of failure and negligence, and that being answerable to Sayyid al-Shuhada is something else. There are groups of mu'mineen and mu'minat who came forward and went above and beyond. Be it here in Toronto, be it the mu'mineen of New York, where they went and they got official permission from the authorities, and with social distancing and face masks and everything, they went out with a julus on the streets to show the world we are mourning for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, this name that Bani Umayyah worked so hard to obliterate. We are that nation that mourns over the oppressed and upholds values of peace and non-violence. They came out showing their madloom. Mu'mineen in Copenhagen, mu'mineen in London, mu'mineen around the world came together with one thing in mind, one thing that drove them, their love for Sayyid al-Shuhada. And number two, mu'mineen who are scattered, perhaps uncoordinated, with limited resources, limited time, limited everything. Somehow they became inspiration for each other across the world without even knowing. And as you reach the night of Ashura, before you realize, in the face of failure and negligence, Imam al-Hussein is such that it gave birth to a movement of mu'mineen who are going above and beyond. And you, my brothers, are part of this. Do not think that you just attended the majlis and khalas. This is something azim in the eyes of Sayyid al-Shuhada, azim in the eyes of Ahlul Bayt. This is the manifestation of words that are inscribed inside of Ziyarat Ashura. Jallat wa adumatil musibatu bika alayna. This tragedy for Imam al-Hussein and this burning heat is such that your soul and your conscience doesn't allow you to settle for anything less than the organization and the participation in a majlis of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And again, for importance and to make sure that words are not taken out of context, and we are munsif with all the regulations, with all the measures that are necessary. With the right planning, it's possible. As the Marja'iyah have said, and as you see in Karbala al-Muqaddas, and you see in Najaf al-Ashraf, and you see in Tehran and in Qom and everywhere else. فَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً أَسَّسَتْ أَسَاسَ الظُّلْمِ وَالْجَوْرِ عَلَيْكُمْ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ. Eternal damnation upon a nation that set the foundation for your oppression and your suppression. وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً دَفَعَتْكُمْ عَنْ مَقَامِكُمْ. And eternal damnation upon that nation that took away from you that divinity that was granted to you by Allah Azza wa Jalla. وَأَزَالَتْكُمْ عَنْ مَرَاتِبِكُمُ الَّتِي رَتَّبَكُمُ اللَّهُ فِيهَا. Our kalam is over here. وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً قَتَلَتْكُمْ. Many times, the issue of la'ana proves to be sensitive, comes across as being offensive, comes across as being sectarian, comes across as being fanatic. people who cannot coexist with each other because of this concept of la'an. First and foremost, la'an, and this is not the topic for tonight, but as an introduction, la'an is a concept within the Quran. And if you say or you negate the concept of la'ana, like an attempt that had been made to publish Ziyarat Ashura by removing the la'anas from it, or stopping the recitation of Ziyarat Ashura in mosques and Husayniyas and so on and so forth. If this stance is to be taken against Ziyarat Ashura, then apply the same stance to the Quran. Because there are a number of verses of the Quran that you will need to remove, reprint to make sure that people are not offended. But before changing the perception of the outside, we need to ensure that our understanding is correct. La'an in no way warrants physical violence. La'an in no way denotes or points towards coming out of the brackets of humanity. La'an is a stance, a verbal stance that you are against oppression. And in its loose translation, invoking eternal damnation on the oppressors. Ya Allah, don't have mercy on these people. Ya Allah, I disassociate myself from these people. Do you know why the Ma'asum Imam would take such a strong stance to disassociate and to invoke eternal damnation and punishment on these people? What did they do to deserve this? Why this is important? Majority of the times. And if a non-Muslim, if a person who doesn't believe in deen was made to understand what these people did to Imam al-Hussein, then the la'an would not be a point of contention. Because any person with a conscience would say, do you know what? These people deserve punishment. But احنا ourselves, do we know the extent of the dhulm that happened to Imam al-Hussein? I want to touch on 2 points towards the end. But this is a tafsir of la'anallahu ummatan qatalatkum. May eternal damnation be on that nation that killed you, Ya Aba Abdullah. Who came to fight Imam al-Hussein? Who comprised this army that fought Imam al-Hussein? Number one, as a starting point, the numbers that fought against Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. In Hada'iq al-Shi'ah, Allama al-Ardabili rahmatullah alayhi relays the number that fought against Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura, on a day like tomorrow, at 100,000. Some historians are of the opinion that it was 30,000 that fought against Imam al-Hussein. And this is what is most famously narrated. You will find Sheikh Saduq in Amali also mentions 30,000. And this number is correct. However, we need tahqiq. Tahqiq, we need to be precise. Look at what Sheikh Saduq says in Kitabul Amali. Hadith which is narrated on authority of Imam Zainul Abidin salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. La yawm ka yawm al-Hussein. There is no day like the day of Hussein. Imam Sajjad is echoing the words of Imam al-Mujtaba. La yawm ka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. There is no day like Ashura. Ma'sum Imam is saying, there is no day like the day of Ashura. But if I make a slogan that goes opposite to this, It's in opposition to what a Ma'soom Imam is saying. Imam is saying there is no day. I say no, every day is like this. Have to be careful in this way. La yawm, whether it's metaphorical or literal. Rules of hadith and the usul state that a statement made against an imam, a contrary statement against that statement of the imam, even if it is metaphorical, leads a person into a parameter maybe outside of wilayah as well. For Imam Sajjad makes it clear, La yawm ka yawm al-Husayn. There is no day like the day of Hussein, like the day of Ashura. ازدلف عليه 30,000 رجلا or ازدلف عليه 30,000 رجل يزعمون أنهم من هذه الأمة. 30,000 men were recruited, grouped themselves and marched towards the killing of Imam al-Hussein. So you find that majority of the historians will quote that the number that fought against Imam al-Hussein was 30,000, and from the numerous sources that are there, they will quote one of them, which is Sheikh Saduq in Kitabul Amali. This is correct, but this 30,000 is part of that 100,000. Why? Because the Imam is very particular. If you continue the hadith, the Imam goes on to say that these 30,000 people that fought against Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura, they had very particular specific qualities and characteristics within them. And it shows you the different groups of people who are fighting against Imam al-Hussein for different reasons on the day of Ashura. From the 100,000 people, according to Allama Ardabili, that stood to fight against Imam al-Hussein, 100,000 people were against Imam al-Hussein for different reasons. Some of them were there for the dunya. Some of them were there for wealth, increment in their wealth. Some were there for political positions like Omar ibn Sa'ad, like Tariq, the one we saw yesterday who went out against Ali al-Akbar. The governorship of Mosul was given to him. Some were there for political position. Some were there for wealth. They were given prizes. There was a bounty on the head of Sayyid al-Shuhada, and they wanted that wealth. The killer of Tiflain, Muslim bin Aqil, Muhammad and Ibrahim, a bounty was put on the two heads of these young children. What? 2,000 dirhams from Ibn Ziyad, for which he beheaded them. 2,000 dirhams. There were those who went for money. There were those who didn't want political position. They didn't even want an increase in wealth. You know why they went to fight Imam al-Hussein? They went to protect their own lives. Because Ibn Ziyad had issued an ultimatum in the city of Kufa. If you are an able-bodied male, there is forced military service upon you. And if you do not register in the armed forces, you yourself are going to be killed. So the people said, you know what? Look at the environment created by the tyrant. He brought out inside of the people this animalistic instinct to survive, even if it is on the basis of harming and killing others. Look at the mentality and the environment created by the oppressor. So the people said, you know what? Instead of me getting killed, I would rather just go and participate in the army. I'm not going to do anything. I'll just make the forces and I'm safe. The la'na encompasses them. Because this was a time for the human being to take a stance. Do you know what? If me taking a stance to side for haqq will cost me my life, then so be it. Which is why Imam al-Hussein said on the day of Ashura, خلق الله عز وجل. We said this today in the afternoon. خلق الله عز وجل الدنيا وجعلها دار الفناء والزوال. It's a temporary world. It's here to go. Live a life. If you're going to live it, live a life of honor. Don't be humiliated by the authority of Fulan and under the subjection of social rules, that conventions La fa'ida in your deen wala in your akhirah, and you are still dhalil. So there were those who were also in the army of Ibn Ziyad and Umar ibn Sa'ad. But they were there because they feared their own lives. There are those who feared that their houses may get destroyed. So they said, no, let's just go and participate. So different people in the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad against Sayyid al-Shuhada for different reasons. This 30,000, which category were they from? Look at what Imam Sajjad says. 30,000 رجل يزعمون أنهم من هذه الأمة. 30,000 men armed to the teeth marching to kill Imam al-Hussein. كل يتقرب إلى الله عز وجل بدمه. They came out in war against Imam al-Hussein, seeking proximity towards Allah by spilling his blood. Look at what the hadith says. يتقرب إلى الله عز وجل بدمه. يعني they went into the battlefield and they brandished their swords against Imam al-Hussein, saying قربة إلى الله. Men who fought Imam al-Hussein on ideology. There are those who went for political position. There are those who went to save their own lives. There are those who went on an ideological war. يتقرب إلى الله بدمه. Seeking proximity towards Allah. This opens for you a brand new afaq. See, hadith like these and Ziyarat Ashura gives you basira. The war against Ahlul Bayt is not from the non-believers. The war against Ahlul Bayt were from those who claim to be Muslim. The one who wages war on Imam al-Hussein, the one who prays Salat, يتقرب إلى الله, the one who claims to serve Islam, the one who claims to serve this deen, is the one who wages war against Imam al-Hussein. Understand and know the characters and the nature of the army and the enemy of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Let not the dhahir, the apparent, deceive you. فَقَتَلُوهُ بَغْيًا وَظُلْمًا وَعُدْوَانًا. They killed him in the most treacherous of ways, while seeking proximity towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This 100,000 army, number one, you know. Number two, you know, there are different categories. You know who is included in this la'na when you recite Ziyarat Ashura tomorrow. 100,000 men fighting for different reasons. Number two. Number three, this army of 100,000, historians mention, was comprised of 18 different cavalries. From these 18 cavalries that went against Imam al-Hussein, the smallest cavalry was made up of 500 horsemen that was led by Zajr ibn Qais. Zajr ibn Qais al-La'in was posted at the border of the city of Kufa. See, traditionally in the olden days, the cities, they used to have a sur. Sur is like the border. The border of the city is like a wall. This is why you notice within the books of fiqh, when they say Hadd al-Tarakhus, when you pass the outer walls of the city or the last houses of the city, and then from there you calculate the Hadd al-Tarakhus for Salat, which is Qasr. So traditionally the cities used to have these borders, like you can say these boundaries. The last cavalry, Imam al-Hussein is where? Intum somewhere in your minds, where is the Khaymag and the Mukhayyam inside of Karbala? And then you have an army that is stretching back. The last cavalry, which is the smallest cavalry, is next to the city of Kufa, in the outskirts of Kufa. 500 horsemen. This is Zajr ibn Qais al-La'in. His job, Zajr ibn Qais al-Ju'fi, his job was what? Under his 500 men, he had two tasks under his cavalry, dual purpose. Number one, stop any remaining person from Kufa who might be a Shia to slip through the city of Kufa and join with Imam al-Hussein. And why did they know this? Because Al-Afu, you had the likes of Habib ibn Madahir and the Muslim ibn Awsaja, who escaped from hiding in the city of Kufa and ended up meeting Imam al-Hussein. They went into hiding after the revolution of Muslim bin Aqil, so posted. And this 500 is backup in case they are called forward. Look how far back the army stretched, to the boundary of Kufa. From this 18 cavalries, one cavalry that was led by Shimr bin Dhiljoshan al-La'in, 4,000 horsemen from the army of Sham. When you refer back to history, you will find that the army that fought Imam al-Hussein, there were those who were from the Khawarij and the Uthmaniyin who were living in the city of Kufa. But in addition to that, you had people from Misr, Egypt. Historians have recorded people from Yemen. Historians have recorded people from Sham. In fact, if you go back to the Maqatil, you will find that when Ali al-Akbar was in the Maidan, and we read yesterday in the Maqtal, فَإِنْ قَلَبَ مَيْمَنَتَهُمْ مَيْسَرَ وَمَيْسَرَتَهُمْ مَيْمَنَ, dislodged their entire right wing and left wing. Not only did he dislodge the right and the left, but he attacked them in such a way that the left wing ended up in the right and the right wing ended up in the left. And you know the most fundamental rule in war is that you stand and maintain your ground, maintain the file and ranks. Ali al-Akbar was such that he caused chaos. The right couldn't separate from the left. For the Maqatil say, فَضَجَّ أَهْلُ الشَّامِ. Dajja yani, they went into a frenzy. They started protesting against their own commanders. We can't hold ground against this person. Who is this person? Which is why Umar ibn Sa'ad had to bribe somebody with the position of the government, head of being the governor of Mosul, such that he could have some sort of motivation to come in. This 4,000 men who were the core of the target in the attack of Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam were the people from Sham, this army from Sham. But in addition to this, you had, this is found in Tariq Tabari, it's from the Amma, not even from the Khassa. On the day of Ashura, a cavalry of 2,000 men, horsemen from the area of Bukhar reached Karbala. Bukhar in today's present-day map is around the area of Uzbekistan. Look at how far and wide the armies were recruited to go against 72 men. What did they fear inside of Imam al-Hussein? Tariq Tabari, Bukhar. And these cavalry of 2,000 men that came in were not regular horsemen. From what you understand, they are part of an elite force that specializes as assassins. 2,000 of them reached on the day of Ashura. Which is why when the Maqtal says that the women were filled with fear, you begin to get a glimpse. And when you read in the book of history that the women felt comfort so long as Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas was there, it gives you an understanding of the courage of Abu al-Fadl and what Abu al-Fadl meant to the women. You know when you say لَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً قتلتكم. Do you know why they deserve la'na? And why the word قتلتكم is used over here? The manner in which they killed Imam al-Hussein. Hi, أحبائي, tonight's majlis, باعتبار ليلة عاشوراء, is Masaib in its entirety. And keep this in your mind when you recite Ziyarat Ashura tomorrow. From the beginning of human history, war has always stipulated a certain code of conduct. Whether you believe in a religion or you don't believe in a religion. The army, the military will always have a code of conduct on the etiquette of war. There are codes of honor in what is acceptable on a battlefield and what is not acceptable on a battlefield. Even with a non-Muslim, on how you deal with the enemies. You will always have laws and rules and regulations on treatment of prisoners of war, treatment of dying and the wounded, and so on and so forth. Because at the end of the day, the personnel who serve in the military and the army are supposed to be men of honor. Men who are willing to risk their life because they value and they're ready to defend certain principles. Historically, this is what it has always meant to be part of the army or the military. So there is a code of conduct and a code of honor. There are certain things, certain acts that are not acceptable in a battlefield. If you understand this, and you come and you see what the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad did on the day of Ashura, not only did they violate every code of conduct in any given religion, not only did they violate codes of conduct that humanity abides by, they did things to Imam al-Hussein that even the wild beasts do not do to other animals. And Imam al-Hussein and the rest of the A'imma speak about this. This is hard to say, and it's going to be even harder to listen. This is a Madhloom Imam. Hadith al-Sharif is in Kamil al-Ziyarat on authority of Ibn Qawlaway al-Qummi. Yani Ibn Qawlaway al-Qummi, the author of Kamil al-Ziyarat. Hadith al-Sharif is by our sixth Imam as-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. The Imam goes on to say that when Imam al-Hussein was coming towards Karbala, the Imam had a vision. He had a dream, and in this dream there was a vision. Yani the dream was a vision. Masoom Imam's dreams are visions. Visions inspired by the Almighty. He sees in this vision, and he has a vision, and he tells his companions, they are moving towards Karbala. He says to his companions who are there with him, I am convinced that I am going to be killed. They are on the way from Mecca towards Iraq. They haven't reached Karbala yet. He says, I am convinced that I am going to be killed. So his companion says to him, and why do you think that, Ya Aba Abdullah? He says, because of a dream that I had. The companion asks him, and what dream did you have, Ya Aba Abdullah? Look at what Imam al-Hussein says. رأيت كلابا تنحشني أشدها علي كلب أبقى. The Imam says, رأيت, I saw كلابا تنحشني. I see myself. Look at the words used by the Imam. Tanhashani, from Nahasha. And he uses kilab, yani dogs. I see wild dogs devouring me. The word over here is devour, tanhashani. Ahibai, have you seen a wild dog hunt? Imam didn't say, I'm going to be attacked by predators or by lions. You know, when the lion hunts, the first thing that it does is it goes for the jugular vein of the prey. As soon as it kills the prey, it will feast on it and feed it to the extent that it needs to, and it goes. Imam says, I will be devoured by wild dogs. Do you know when a wild dog hunts, it begins to rip apart the pieces of the body of its prey while it is still alive? A wild dog devours the limbs of its prey. Imam al-Hussein says, my limbs are to be devoured by these wild dogs. What did they do to Sayyid al-Shuhada? Hadith al-Sharif by Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. He says, Qutila bis-sayf. Was Sinan. He was killed by being struck with swords. And he was pierced with spears. Sinan. Wal hijara. Those who didn't have a sword or a spear, they threw stones on him. If you'd like to switch off the light for them, it's better. Says they threw stones on Imam al-Hussein. But more than that, wal khashab, they threw pieces of wood on Imam al-Hussein. Is there anything more to throw on Imam al-Hussein? He says, wal asa, meaning the one who didn't have weapons or stones, they took their walking sticks and their staffs, and with this they hit Imam al-Hussein. Sheikh Saduq says there were 320 wounds from spears. Sheikh Tushtari says 114 sword wounds. All these wounds were on the front of the body of the Imam, because the Imam never turns his back in the battlefield. How many wounds can a human body take? Hadith Sharif by Alama Mazandarani, he says, look at what they did to Imam al-Hussein, his final moments. He says, فَبَكِيَ مَكْبُوبًا عَلَى الْأَرْضِ. Imam al-Hussein lay face down on the plains of Karbala. The Rawi is describing when Imam al-Hussein has fallen off the horse. He fell face first. He was lying down face first on the plains of Karbala. Mulattakhan bidameh, covered in his own blood. All this time, what was Imam al-Hussein saying? وَهُوَ يَقُولُ صَبْرًا عَلَىٰ قَضَائِكَ وَبَلَائِكَ. He was in dua. He says, I shall be patient upon what you have ordained upon me and destined, Ya Rabb. La ma'buda siwak. There is no one, there is no Lord except you. Ya Ghiyath al-Mustaghithin, O you who comes to the help of those in distress. Thumma nada, and then Imam al-Hussein cried out, Wa Jadda wa Muhammada wa Abata wa Aliya. Wa akha wa hasana. He called out to Rasul and to Amir and to his brother Imam al-Mujtaba. And then what did the Imam say? Wa ghurbata. Oh, this loneliness and this estrangement. Wa qillata nasira. Oh, for the few helpers and the lack of helpers. He says, Aqtal madhluman. He says, me will I be killed while I'm oppressed? Wa jaddi Muhammad al-Mustafa. Will you kill me in this manner? And my grandfather is Rasulullah. Look at what Imam al-Hussein says to the enemies. أُذْبَحْ أَتْشَانًا وَأَبِي عَلِيٍّ الْمُرْتَضَى. Are you going to slaughter me while I'm thirsty and my father is Ali al-Murtada? The hadith says at this point, فَضَرَبَهُ اللَّعِينُ بِسَيْفِهِ عَلَىٰ عَاتِقِهِ. At this moment, while the Imam is in dua, the enemy comes forward and struck Sayyid al-Shuhada with a sword between the shoulder and the neck. Kitab al-Ma'ali, they say when Imam al-Hussein fell off the horse, he says, when they looked at the Imam, there was skin and flesh hanging off the bones of the Imam. But more than this, the mouth cannot say. When you say, La'anallahu ummatan qatalatkum, know that they deserve this damnation, for no human being, leave Abu Abdullah, no human being deserves to be killed in this manner. They ensured that he will experience every sort of pain before his soul leaves the body. And they had no mercy doing this. If this is what they did to Imam al-Hussein and they had no mercy on Abu Abdullah, these are the same people who had no mercy on his 6-month-old infant. When you say, La'anallahu ummatan qatalatkum, know that these people deserve the punishment of Allah because of the pain they brought into the heart of Allah. The Maktal narrates that Sayyid al-Shuhada towards the time of Asr was all alone in the plains of Karbala. He looked around him, and around him there were scattered the decapitated bodies of his companions and of his family members. He looked around in distress himself, Imam al-Hussein covered in blood. Some of the blood is the blood from the chest of Ali al-Akbar. Some of the blood on his body is from the severed arms of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Some of the blood is from the trampled body of Shah Qasim. Imam al-Hussein is standing alone in the Maidan. He looks at the decapitated bodies and he cries out in a voice that is filled with pain. هل من ناصر ينصرنا ألا من مغيث يغيثنا. As the Imam cries out, is there anyone to help us? On the other end, the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad are celebrating and dancing and beating the drums out of joy. All of them are hurling insults towards Imam al-Hussein and shouting threats at the women who are in the khaybar. Imam al-Hussein calls out, Hal min nasirin yansurna, ala min mughithin yughithuna. When he called out in this manner, the women in the khayma burst out in tears, weeping and wailing in their loudest voices. Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam al-Hussein goes into the khayma to see why is it that the women are weeping and wailing. He goes into the khayma to comfort them. He says, my sister Zainab, what is it that all the women begin to weep and wail so loudly at the same time? Sayyida Zainab says, Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Ibn Rasulillah. At this moment, she didn't say my brother. She referred to him as Ya Ibn Rasulillah, acknowledging that he is the Imam Zaman of the time. She says, Ya Ibn Rasulillah, when you called out and you said, Hal min nasirin yansurna, we saw the cradle of Aliyun al-Asghar shake and rock violently. The infant threw himself off the cradle, as if for Aliyun al-Asghar to respond to the call of his father. Ya Aba Abdullah, if the world has abandoned you and you have no helpers, here I am, a 6-month-old infant. Allah, Imam al-Hussein says to Zainab al-Kubra alayhi as-salam, Sayyida Zainab, bring me my infant. She brings Sayyida Zainab, goes and brings the infant from the arms of Sayyida Rabab. She places him on the hands of Aba Abdullah. Imam al-Hussein hugs this infant. Those of you who are parents, those of you who are grandparents, you know the joy that it is to hold your child, your newborn child, your newborn grandchild. You know how it feels when you hold them close to the chest, huh? You know how it feels when you see when you feel the tender skin on the face and the tender body against your chest, huh? Have you seen a mother who gives birth to her child? Have you seen a mother who gives birth to a child? When she's holding the child in the maternity ward, do you see the sukoon in the face of the mother? Allah, Allah, what did Rabab do? What did Rabab do? Sayyid al-Shuhada, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein holds his infant. He kisses him on the forehead. The narrations mention that because of 3 days of thirst and hunger, the eyes of Abdullah al-Radhi had sunk into his head. The eyes of the child had sunk into the head due to malnutrition. The child, the Maktal says, Aliyun al-Asghar was not even able to cry. Do you know why? For a child to cry, it needs energy. For a child to cry, it needs nutrition. Aliyun al-Asghar was not able to cry, so he would gasp for breath to get attention, which is why Zainab says, when Aliyun al-Asghar threw himself off the cradle, we began to weep because the child had no energy. But the madlumiyat in the call of Aba Abdullah, Sayyida Zainab al-Kubra says, oh my brother, oh Yabna Rasulullah, oh my master Yabna Rasulullah, perhaps they will feed the infant with some water. If they feed the infant with some water, it will bring Rabab some comfort. The narrations mention that Sayyid al-Shuhada took Aliyun al-Asghar. Allah, he wore his Aba. Imam al-Hussein wore his Aba. And he walked into the Maidan. And you know, traditionally, within Arab culture, when you wear your Aba, it means that you are not in a state of war. Imam al-Hussein is coming with this infant child. He comes in with his Aba in the Maidan. And as he is walking, the Rawi mentions that Imam al-Hussein covered Aliyun al-Asghar with his Aba. He held him close to the chest and then he covered him with the Aba. Allah, Imam al-Hussein is covering Aliyun al-Asghar with the Aba from the heat of the sun. Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah, you are worried about the heat of the sun causing pain and distress to Aliyun al-Asghar, but on the other hand, Hurmala is waiting. Allah, Allah. Imam al-Hussein walks into the Maidan with Aliyun al-Asghar close to his chest, covered in the Aba. Hamid ibn Muslim says, when Aba Abdullah al-Hussein came forward, We thought that he was carrying the Quran, but when he removed the child from inside, when he uncovered the Abba, we saw this is his infant child. Imam al-Hussein comes in the middle of the Maidan. The enemies are lined up in front of him. Imam al-Hussein lifted up Ali al-Asghar and he says to them, Ya qawm, qad qataltum akhi. O people, you have killed my brother and you have killed my children and you have killed my companions. وَمَا بَقِيَ لِي غَيْرَ هَذَا الطِّفْلِ. And there is no one remaining in my camp except for this infant of mine. He says, if there is a sin for the elders, we will take, but what is the sin of this child? For 3 days he has been thirsty. His mother is not able to give him any milk. Look at what the Imam says. Imam says, فَإِن لَمْ تَرْحَمُونِي فَارْحَمُوا هَذَا الطِّفْلِ. If you don't want to have mercy on me, have mercy on this 6-month-old infant. The narration mentions Imam al-Hussein lifted him up. When he lifted Ali al-Asghar removed his tongue from the mouth. The narrations mention the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. Half of them began to cry. Half of them said, give him water. They began to quarrel with each other. As they were quarreling, Umar ibn Sa'ad was worried that his army, there might be a mutiny. So he looked around. He sees Hurmala. He calls Hurmala. He says, oh Hurmala. This name Hurmala tears the hearts of the Shia. He says, oh Hurmala. And the reason of the dispute in my army. Hurmala says, I removed an arrow from my quiver. I removed an arrow. I pointed it towards Ali al-Asghar. He says, I was thinking which part of the infant I should target with the arrow. At this moment, there was a warm breeze that blew across the plains of Karbala. And the shawl of Ali al-Akbar flew up. Hurmala says, I saw the neck of the child. It was like a shining jug of silver. He says, this is the place I need to target. Allah, Allah, Ya Shi'at Ali Muhammad. Allah, Allah, Ya Shi'at Ali Muhammad. Hurmala says, I launched the arrow towards the child. I launched the arrow towards the child. We have two narrations. One narration says, فَذَبَحَهُ مِنَ الْوَرِيدِ إِلَى الْوَرِيدِ. First narration says, it shattered the jugular vein of the child. It shattered the jugular veins of the child. There is a second narration. It says that the arrow pierced one ear and came out from the other. Ya Shi'at Ali Muhammad, both these narrations are correct because the arrow that Hurmala used was a 3-pronged arrow. Ya Shi'at Ali Muhammad, I don't know if you have the heart to hear this. I don't know if you have the heart to listen to this. But the Harawi mentions that when the arrow pierced Ali al-Akbar, he began to move in the hands of his father in the same way that the fish moves when you remove it from the water. Sayyid al-Shuhada takes the blood that is pouring from the neck of Ali al-Asghar. He throws it up towards the heavens. Imam al-Baqir says there wasn't a single drop of blood that fell down. He then put his hand under the neck. The second round of blood, Imam al-Hussein puts the blood on his face. He puts the blood on his face and his beard and he says, Ya Allah, this is how I shall meet you on the day of judgment. Imam al-Hussein is walking. Imam al-Hussein is walking with this infant. And then a cry comes from the heaven, Ya Hussein, let go of the infant. There is somebody to take care of him in heaven. The hadith doesn't mention who this call is from. Ahibbai, my heart tells me that at this point in Karbala, Sayyida Fatima Zahra called, Ya Hussein, there is the place for Aliun al-Asghar with Muhsin. Allah, Allah. Imam al-Hussein is walking towards the Khaymaga. The narrations mention 7 times he went forward. 7 times he went. 7 times he went forward. 7 times he went back. Each time saying, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Allah. Ya Aba Abdullah, why? My mind, my heart tells me the reluctance for Imam al-Hussein is if I go into the Khaymaga, how do I show the baby to Rubab? How do I show the infant to Rubab? If Rubab is to see, Rubab might die out of grief.
On that day, he wanted to console Muhsin, he wanted to console his uncle. He wanted to tell his uncle, like you died for your mother, Fatima, I will die for you. He says to him, يا محسن يا عمي عاين أحوالي رضيع وانذبح عطشان. Oh Muhsin, look at my state, and in I am slaughtered thirsty. كان قمار عطية جباني ومني سلبة وجباني. Oh uncle Muhsin, the shroud itself was my cloak, and even this cloak they looted from me. يا عمي ليتك تعاين أمي تصيح صوب حسين. Oh uncle, I wish you can see my mother scream by Hussein. شف اللبن من صدري يا رضعه الولد وين؟ He says, oh uncle, the milk has dried in her chest. She said, how will I suckle this child? لو أملك دمعة والله أرض عنه من دمع أرض عنه من دمع الآن. والله if I have tears in my eyes, I will suckle him from my tears. He says to him, يا عمي يا محسن ترضى يفضمني سهم مسموم في نحري. He tells him, my uncle Muhsin, are you pleased that the 3-pronged arrow that's poison strikes my neck? He says, وانا في جف ابو السجاد ما وصل سنة عمري, I'm in the arms of my father. 1 year has not elapsed of my age. يا عمي تحتمل تسمع بحالي وايش فعل دهري يا uncle. Can you handle hearing this, what life has done to me? حملت مصاب يا عمي ما يتحمل الزايا, and I carried tragedies. Oh uncle, no human carries. What is the response of Muhsin? He tells him, يا عبد الله إذا الحسين سمع أمك وليها ثار. Oh Abdullah, if Hussein heard your mother, and for her he was anguished, my dear brothers and sisters, forgive me. أنا لطم خدها ولا تحرك على الكرار. As for my mother, her face was slapped, and Ali did not move. وإذا صدر أمك تيبس في صدر أمي نبت مسمار. If your mother's chest has dried up in my mother's chest, and AOP still chest to raise. with مصابك صعب حمله مصابي شيب الرضعان. If your tragedy is hard to carry, my tragedy ages infants. وإذا أنت يا عبد الله شفت أمك وحسين وجملة الأحباب. أنا ما جبت حتى أمي وقع راسي على عتاب. If you, oh Abdullah, saw your mother, father, and loved ones, oh Abdullah, I did not see anyone, not even my mother. My head fell first floor on the floor of the house. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. असगर को लेके गोद में कहती है करबला, ये वो अली है जिसको कभी गैर नहीं मिला, ये वो अली है जिसको कभी गैर नहीं मिला। जय माहिर है गरीब मुसाफिर को सौंप के कहने लगे हुसैन ये कब्रे सगीर से रखना जरा ख्याल मेरे तश्ना काम है, ये वो अली है जिसको कभी गैर नहीं मिला है, ये वो अली है जिसको कभी गैर नहीं मिला। मादर ये बहन कहती थी दिल में है ये कसक, सुगरा तुम्हारी गोद से खामोश कब्र तक, असगर को मौत ने कहीं रुकने नहीं दिया, ये वो अली है जिसको कभी गैर नहीं मिला है, वो अली है जिसको कभी गैर नहीं मिला। माँ सोचती निकलता है दिन हो रही है शाम, झूले में लौट आएगा शायद वो तश्ना काम, लेकिन गजब हुआ कि वो झूला भी जल गया, ये वो अली है जिसको कभी गैर नहीं मिला, ये वो अली है जिसको कभी गैर नहीं मिला। या हुसैन 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 या हुसैन
कौन है ये मस्तूर जो अब तक असगर असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मस्तूर जो अब तक असगर असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मस्तूर जो अब तक असगर असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मस्तूर असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? साये से घबराती है, साये से घबराती है और धूप में कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? प्यास के आलम में पानी गोटे गया है बढ़ती है, प्यास के आलम में पानी गोटे गया है बढ़ती है। हाथ भिगो कर पानी में, हाथ भिगो कर पानी में कुछ बात लिखती रहती है। कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? प्यास के आलम में पानी को दे गया है बढ़ती है, प्यास के आलम में पानी को दे गया है बढ़ती है। हाथ भिगो कर पानी में, हाथ भिगो कर पानी में कुछ बात लिखती रहती है। कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? साये से घबराती है, साये से घबराती है और धूप में बैठी रहती है। कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती? दर्द भरी लोरी कहती है चले झूले के पास, दर्द भरी लोरी कहती है चले झूले के पास। खून आलूदा करते से, खून आलूदा करते से फिर बात करती रहती है। कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है? कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक यारी को असगर लौट के आएगा अब तक आस दुखियारी को असगर लौट के आएगा शहर फुरात की राहों को शहर फुरात की राहों को ये पल पल तकती रहती है कौन है ये मजदूर जो असगर कहती है कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है साए से घबराती है साए से घबराती है और धूप में बैठी रहती है कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है प्यास के आलम में पानी को दे के है भरती है प्यास के आलम में पानी को दे के है भरती है हाथ भिगो कर पानी में हाथ भिगो कर पानी में कुछ खाक लिखती रहती है कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है कौन है ये मजदूर जो अब तक असगर कहती है या हुसैन 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 हुसैन या हुसैन हुसैन या हुसैन हुसैन या 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 हुसैन तुझे झूला झुलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं 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 मैं ख्वाब में असगर तुझे मैं ख्वाब में असगर तुझे लोरी भी सुनाऊं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं लौटाओ सफर से के बड़ी देर हुई है लौटाओ सफर से के बड़ी देर हुई है कब से तुझे सीने से लगाऊं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला बड़ी देर हुई है लौटाओ सफर से बड़ी देर हुई है बेताब हूँ कब से तुझे बेताब हूँ कब से तुझे सीने से लगाऊं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं 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 मैं ख्वाब में हंस गए तुझे मैं ख्वाब में हंस गए तुझे लोरी भी सुनाऊं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं कोई मुझे बतलाता नहीं तेरी निशानी कोई मुझे बतलाता नहीं तेरी निशानी बरसात में तीनों की कहाँ ढूंढने जाऊं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं 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 कोई मुझे बतलाता नहीं तेरी निशानी कोई मुझे बतलाता नहीं तेरी निशानी बरसात में तीनों की बरसात में तीनों की कहाँ ढूंढने जाऊं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं 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 सोचा था तेरी सालगिरह अगर मैं करूंगी सोचा था तेरी सालगिरह अगर मैं करूंगी तकदीर ये कहती है तकदीर ये कहती है तेरा शोक मनाऊं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं 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 सोचा था तेरी सालगिरह अगर मैं करूंगी सोचा था तेरी सालगिरह अगर मैं करूंगी तकदीर ये कहती है तकदीर ये कहती है तेरा शोक मनाऊं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं मैं ख्वाब में हंस गए तुझे मैं ख्वाब में हंस गए तुझे लोरी भी सुनाऊं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झूलाऊं झुलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं ये खून भरा कुर्ता ये मट्टी ये बड़े बाप ये खून भरा कुर्ता ये मट्टी ये बड़े बाप सीने में छुपाऊंगे सीने में छुपाऊंगे मैं आंखों से लगाऊं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं मैं तुझे झूला झुलाऊं शबीर हमें आती सदा देता है खून 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 शबीर हमें आती सदा देता है मातमी हाथ उठाने की मातमी हाथ उठाने की दुआ देता है खून शबीर हमें आती सदा देता है खून शबीर हमें आती सदा देता है मातमी हाथ उठाने की मातमी हाथ उठाने की दुआ देता है खून शबीर हमें आती सदा 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 देता है सच्चे अल्फाज है क्या रे सदाकत क्या है ये बताता है हमें हुस्न शहादत क्या है और कहते हैं किसे और इबादत क्या है ये तो बेदीनों को तौहीद सिखा देता है खून शबीर हमें आती सदा 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 देता है आओ पुकार यजीदी को मिटाने के लिए परचम हज़रत अब्बास उठाने के लिए दीन इस्लाम की तौहीद बचाने के लिए जज्बा शौक़ शहादत को बढ़ा देता है खून शबीर हमें आती सदा देता है खून शबीर हमें आती सदा देता है खून शबीर हमें आती सदा देता है मातमी हाथ उठाने की मातमी हाथ उठाने की दुआ देता है खून शबीर हमें आती सदा देता है खून शबीर हमें आती सदा देता है जिक्र शबीर की अजमत का हवाला बन गए दीन अहमद का जमाने में सहारा बन गए पीर बख्तार मुकद्दर का उजाला बन गए आतिशे इश्क हुसैनी को हवा देता है खून शबीर हमें अभी सदा 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 देता है लोहा शबीर की गुर्बत का सुना कर देखो हाथ मातम के लिए तुम भी उठा कर देखो जख्म मातम को सरे सीना सजा कर देखो ये वो गम है जो हर एक गम को बुला देता है खुद शबीर हमें अभी सदा 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 देता आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ मेरे लाडले कहाँ हो मेरे लाडले कहाँ हो सीने तुम्हें लगाओ असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरी माँ बेटा तुम्हारा कातिल मेरे सामने खड़ा है जाने क्यों हंस रहा है चादर भी लुट चुकी है तू किस तरह छुपाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ बेटा तुम्हारा कातिल मेरे सामने खड़ा है जाने क्यों हंस रहा है राधे भी लुट चुकी है मुँह किस तरह छुपाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे
तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ मेरे लाडले कहाँ हो मेरे लाडले कहाँ हो सीने तुम्हें लगाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ तेरे झूले को सकीना रो रो के चूमती है तुझे घर में ढूंढती है तेरी मौत की खबर में कैसे उसे सुनाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ मेरी जान जा रही है ये सोच सोच असगर इस फूल से गले पर ये तीर कैसे झेला बहनों को क्या बताऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ मेरे लाडले कहाँ हो मेरे लाडले कहाँ हो सीने तुम्हें लगाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ वैसे से गिर रहा है नन्हा सा सर तुम्हारा दिल रोता है हमारा मेरे हाथ तू बंधे हैं सर किस तरह उठाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ मेरे लाडले कहाँ हो मेरे लाडले कहाँ हो सीने तुम्हें लगाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ वैसे से गिर रहा है नन्हा सा सर तुम्हारा दिल रोता है हमारा मेरे हाथ तू बंधे हैं सर किस तरह उठाऊं असगर में तेरी माँ हूँ आ जाओ चांद मेरे
बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी आऊं आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी आऊं आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माऊं आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माऊं बेटा तुम्हारा कातिल मेरे सामने खड़ा है जाने क्यों हंस रहा है चादर भी लुट चुकी है मुंह के सारा छुपाऊं असगर में तेरी माऊं आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माऊं आ जाओ चांद मेरे तेरी प्यास मैं बुझाऊं असगर में तेरी माऊं
السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا حبيب الله السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى أم المؤمنين عليها السلام السلام عليك يا علي بن أبي طالب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله السلام عليك